This meeting to order. It is.
She's got a migraine, yeah.
Hmm?
I was just saying to her.
It is June 6th and 5:31. Good evening to everybody. As we begin this meeting, it's important to pay respect and to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Ohlone, Castanoan, and Esselen people, and additionally pay respect to elders both past and present. Can we begin this with a roll call, please?
Of course, President Swanson,
Present.
Dr. Hazen,
Here.
Trustee McNary is absent. Trustee Otmar. I'm here. Trustee Swanson. Here.
Perfect, great. All right, so moving on to the agenda. Do we have anybody online right now that wishes to make public comment on the agenda? And with their hand raised? Okay. Board, do we have any comments on the agenda as it's presented for this evening?
I do not.
Seeing no one, then can we get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Also move.
The second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Dr. Hazen and a second from trustee Otmar. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously, so we now have an agenda. Moving on to closed session, we're going to identify the topics that lie before us. Negotiations with collective bargaining, PGTA. Second item, negotiations with CSEA. Third item, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, leave, complaint. Number 4, negotiations with unrepresented employee or superintendent. And number 5, public employee evaluation for paraeducator. Do we have any public comment on closed session topic? No one online. And seeing no one in the room, I believe now we can adjourn to closed session. Thanks, everybody. We are reconvening. Apologies for being late. We had a lot of stuff back there. Gonna report back on our closed session items. Item number 1, nothing to report. Item number 2, CSEA negotiations information was received. We had a couple under 3. One as it relates to employee number 161521. The request was denied. Also, there was on another item, information shared and direction given. Number 4, no action was taken on that particular item. And number 5, public employee evaluation in the information was received. And so now, given that, and rolling through, and I'm going to apologize after I told Dr. Hazen to stop apologizing. I'm going to say what a lot tonight because my ears are still plugged up from a flight I had 2 weeks ago, and I can't really hear all that well. So sorry for just asking again and again for people to repeat themselves, but I can really not hear especially well. Given that, Trustee Otmar, would you be so kind to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. All right. Moving on to communications, written communications. I had a few since the last meeting. One, an invitation from City Hall for their June 10th Pride Month flag raising. One related to music program honorarium. I had numerous emails relating to our sex ed curriculum. A couple relating to kindergarten class size. One related to PSAT and one related to Islamophobia. Board members, anything additional?
I received an email that was very thoughtful about the Fair Allergy website, FARE. I also received an in-person communication about a situation among fifth graders at Robert Down. I received an email about the pride flag raising at City Hall and also an email about honors classes.
Nailed my leftovers, and no more for me.
I will bring my list at the June 18th meeting.
Oh, okay, great, very good. Let's now move on to board member comments. And what a week or week and a half or 2 weeks it really was, but let's start down at the end with trustee Carolyn.
Thank you. End of the school year. It's always an interesting meeting. My child is in ESY in summer school, and I will just say thank you to all the people running Robert Down right now. It's just been like a buzz with activity, and it's been done in a really organized way. They even made sure that all of the gates around the perimeter of the school are locked every day, even though it's summertime. And then they put laminated signs up to say, school's in session, public is welcome at 12:30 when school's no longer in session. And that seems really simple, but that's the first time I've ever seen that. And so I think it just deserves to be called out and appreciated. And like, if we can continue that level of communication with the neighbors, it just made me really smile as a trustee, because anytime I go to the site, I always test the gates, and they were locked and they had that sign up. So that was really cool to see. I'm not sure exactly who's responsible. So did somebody say who's, I thought I heard a name. Maybe Mrs. Williams. Yeah, she is very thorough. So whoever it was, office staff, Mrs. Williams, et cetera, thank you. I also saw that at Forest Grove, because the district staff made a really strategic move to close down fully a site or multiple sites so that maintenance can be done, that Forest Grove is also a buzz, but in a different way. So there's really big vans and trucks there. They look like ABM. One of them said ABM, so I'm guessing that's that contract being fulfilled. There's like trees being trimmed, just things that are happening that it's kind of exciting. I've never seen that level of organization in the summertime before. I've seen little glimpses of it, but it's just really clear. There was even a huge pile of like brush, leaves, moss as I was driving by, and the fire gates were open, and like 3 huge deer with their horns were just like having a buffet day. They were just going wild. So it was very PG moment. But really, like, thank you to the staff for not having kids there when that work's being done. It made me really happy to see that. And then I'm looking out at the audience and I see Debbie Anthony is here. I just want to acknowledge you, Debbie. She's a trustee on the Monterey Peninsula College board. So welcome to our meeting. That's it.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep it brief because we came back late. So just sort of bittersweet end of the year. You know, it's great to see kids moving on in the district, going to graduations, watching people, you know, take off and become adults. It's wonderful. But, you know, bittersweet. So great week. That's all I have.
Yep, nothing more to add than what has been said. Thank you.
With my microphone on. It was my last graduation to attend as a board member, and I get very verklempt is the word I use, but to sit there and watch those students, and so many of these now I've seen from kindergarten onward, and walk across that stage and be able to shake their hand, congratulate them on a tremendous achievement is really, it is the best thing I think about being a board member, to watch them as they move on, you know. And we had, is it 105 at the high school, or 109, and then 5 from community high too, and to be at both of those, and I missed all the others, but it's just the best thing. And I will miss that so much. But congratulations to the graduates across this district and all that they've accomplished, from our young people to our adults who have achieved really fantastic things. So that's all I got. Thank you. Superintendent.
Thank you. Well, yes, I think very similar for me. You'll hear me talking on the first day of school about the magic of the first day, but really there's the magic of the last week of school as well. And I think, we saw that in play. And I just look over to our staff, our admin, our entire staff. Thank you to everything you did in order to coordinate all of those many promotions and graduations and ceremonies to just celebrate our students. It really is, it's amazing. You've all said it, to see them being able to move on and just celebrate what they've achieved. I think all of it culminating at the high school graduation on Friday night. And you're right, 115, I believe, graduates, right, in moving on. And it's pretty amazing to see. I think as well, I want to just thank our board for being present at so many of them. I know we heard it over and over from our staff, but, that is recognized and it's noticed and appreciated. So thank you. I had the honor of joining Director Rogerman today in attending our ESL, so English as a Second Language celebration at the Adult Ed School. I want to just see Principal Barbara Martinez over there and AP Kristen Arps. Just thank you for what an incredible celebration. There were a total of 32 languages and countries that were represented at that ceremony and really represented throughout the year, all coming together from different points of the world to learn English, all at varying levels. But you and your staff, Barbara, did an unbelievable job of just celebrating and recognizing the many hours that they've all put together in learning English. It's just a reminder for us, we're an academic institution and, we're typically working with students. That's that strong reminder that, we're never too old to continue learning, right? Learning never stops. I think that's the important message that came. I was so impressed with two of the student speakers who really are new to English, and they were up there in front of this big audience, just really talking about their experience and just how grateful they are that we have this as a course offering at the adult school. And that's very unique, I know, for our district, and how proud we should be of, what we continue to offer. So just an honor to be a part of that. And really just, yes, I think my last point, it's summer, right? And just I hope that we're all taking that time to just enjoy. I know many of our staff are off, but many continue to work. And I look over at Director Anderson. I thank you, Trustee Swanson, for recognizing just the work that's ongoing at our schools. This is the time where they sort of kick it into high gear as everyone else is maybe slowing down. And we see it in action. Director Anderson was so excited, I think, Monday being at all of the different sites. And, it's a busy time for you, but we just appreciate your leadership through that. And we're excited to see the work in action and see where we end up at the end of summer. So that's it, I think, for me for now. Thank you, President Swanson.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's move us on to public comment on non-agenda items. We'll begin with community members. Just a quick reminder, you're limited to 3 minutes, 20 minutes in the aggregate on any particular topic. So if we have anyone in the room with comments on non-agenda items, now would be the time to step up to the podium. And Lewis, do we have anybody online with their hand raised? We have no one. So looking back to the room, here we go. I didn't hear that, so.
The podium.
Be a long night for me trying to understand what anybody says. I do have my glasses at least, though. Yes, the glasses arrived, so I can see. Just
That's
can't
a good
hear.
start.
Okay, well, as Carolyn introduced you, myself, I am your representative on the Monterey Peninsula College School Board of Trustees. But I'm also a resident, lifelong, 75 years of this community, graduate of Pacific High School, and also an employee as a teacher instructor at Monterey Peninsula College for 40 years. And so that's how I came to be on the board, because I just felt like it just wasn't quite finished. There's just a little bit more help, maybe something I could do. So, but I'm coming to you and I'm really pained about this because you had representatives at our board meeting 2 weeks ago. And they were there because of our board policy for selection of officers, board officers. And our policy reads that at annual general organizational meetings, the board shall elect from its members following officers, president and vice president. Terms of these offices shall be for 1 year. There's no reference as to how many terms a district can hold in office, but just that the election must take place every year. My board made its decision based on race versus rotation by districts that we represent. I represent Pacific Grove. I don't represent just the Board of Education at Pacific Grove, but I represent the whole city of Pacific Grove, as I also represent parts of Monterey and parts of Carmel also, because of the area that we are all divided into. We all have districts that we represent. They were, however, split on this by race. I did not feel that any district's residents on the Monterey Peninsula would want race as a criteria for being elected as an officer of the board at Monterey Peninsula College. So therefore, I abstained from voting. I was surprised and pained to know that my own school board district of Pacific Grove would be supportive of representation by race. I was even more surprised that the board would be supportive. I was even more surprised that the board would not consult with their own residents, some of whom are African Americans. I had to take a vote, and I voted the way that best represented my district, which represents those of you sitting in the room. But with your attendance and participation at this meeting, you made this action a challenge and an embarrassment, and hurt my feelings deeply. As persons in this district continue to ask me why the school board took this direction of support of District 1, I continue to guess in giving them answers. So I asked you tonight, why not support getting equity inclusion in your representation selection through the rotation of districts? I just need to know what your rationale of how you thought I should have represented the residents of this city and the rest of this whole peninsula, which we also represent. I would have liked the support of our mayor and city council. However, I did.
And I'm sorry to have to
I
cut
did
you
get-
off, but
I just have one more sentence,
You-
which
okay.
ends with, I did get the support from the mayor of the city of Seaside and members of the NAACP. And I think that's important because in working with your district in the issues around equity inclusion, I was able to find a consultant to work with you. And I
Thank you
found
for
that
your-
through.
For your time, I do have to
through
cut you off in
NAACP.
fairness to
So I just
everybody.
want you to,
and
that's all I
very-
want to
and
know. I
to
just want to
everybody
know
else.
why
Okay.
and what I can do to
Thank you
better
very much.
represent you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Louis, anybody else online? No one? And anyone else in the room for non-agenda items? Okay, so, moving on, staff comments on any non-agenda items.
Good evening. My name is Robert Silvera. I'm your nutrition director for the district. Just going to give you a quick end of the year update for our program. So in May, we completed an $85,000 equipment grant with 100% use successfully. The large ticket items, we received 3 new double deck ovens, an ice machine at the high school that several programs utilize, warming cabinets at the middle school, all new point of sale hardware with new pin pads, scanners, monitors at all the sites. And I also brought in the new satellite stations for when we eventually get to it at the middle school and high school to fully utilize that funding. Finally, new garden bars and milk coolers at all the sites. So we are live and active at all elementary, middle, and high school for our new garden bars. Added on to that, at Robert Down, we've actually teamed up with Keith Larson and Heidi Feldman for the school garden. And we are very happy to be serving our students produce that they're actually growing themselves from 100 feet away, which is awesome. For next year, we've talked about maybe expanding into more herbs and tomatoes and peppers. And I've asked them if their yield would be able to serve all of our students at all of our serving sites, so we can at least add it into, incorporate not only into our garden bars, but also into our fresher recipes that we've started. So that'll be great to see next year. Finally, we ended this year serving 325,000 meals, and we'll be serving hot meals all summer right up until getting back to school at all of our various programs at the sites. And we'll be fully staffed for the first time in the past year and excited to move forward next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? No one online? Anybody else in the room on non-agenda items from the staff? Seeing none, we are now going to move on to consent agenda, which is massive. I think the longest I've ever seen it. At one point, we're actually into triple letters, but we got it down to double letters. So is there anything, any public comment on our consent agenda? Seeing anybody and anybody online? It sounds like no. On consent? No, this is just the consent agenda item right now too. So, all right. And board, any comment on consent? Anything that is of an issue or that we would want removed?
I don't, I submitted my questions in advance, so all of them got answered. Actually, I didn't even have any questions on consent, so kudos to staff for all those things.
Okay, great,
you.
great. Anyone else? Any other board members?
I had my questions answered in advance. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, great. All right. Dr. Hazen, the same?
I didn't have questions, so that on this item, so they didn't get answered.
Okay, so with no questions, let's look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll move on staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Carolyn Swanson, a second from trustee Dr. Hazen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Don't believe so. Passes unanimously. So we're going to be able to burn through quite a few pages. Yes. So, all right, now we are now moving on to public hearing for AB 1200 CSEA chapter number 229. I'm going to open this public hearing on June 6th at 7:30 p.m. And do we have Claudia online to present this? Was she going to jump in for this? Okay.
Should we just thank Claudia Ariano for just a moment, because technically her last day was yesterday and she's here working tonight. So pretty incredible.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you see me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Loud and
That's good. I had to request access to talk with you. Claudia Arellano, Director of Human Resources for the school district. So yes, we're bringing forward to you this item now that the district has actually entered and settled a tentative agreement with the California School Employees Association, Chapter 229. This is for a successor agreement that will cover July 1, 2023 through June 30th of 26 and negotiations for the year 23-24. Once the district enters into a tentative agreement, Assembly Bill 200 and Government Code Section 3547.5 requires that the district publicly disclose the provisions of the TA before finalizing and entering into a written agreement with the association. The intention of this hearing is to ensure that the public is aware of the known cost and is provided an opportunity to comment on the tentative agreement that we have in front of us. You have all the items there. This total compensation was for a total of 4.83%. You have the breakdown of all of those items. And I just want to say that I am grateful, and it was a pleasure working with the CSEA negotiating team, the district negotiating team as well. It was a lot of hard work. a lot of collaboration and effective communication that allowed us to truly come up with win-win situations. And I believe that we have a collective bargaining agreement that is looking better. And, you know, there's still some work that needs to take place, but again, an amazing team, classified people. My hat's off to them for all their hard work and everything that they do for the district. You are truly blessed to have classified people that are highly qualified there working for you. So that is all I have to say, and I'll let the hearing take place.
Okay. So going out to the public, if there is any comments or questions on this particular item, either online or in the room. Seeing no one. Well, that makes it kind of easy. We're going to close this public hearing, and then it moves on to a little redundancy, but that's okay. June 6th, 7:33, we're closing that particular item. And now moving on to action discussion and approval of AB 1200 as it was just presented. If anybody had any questions, they probably would have asked already, but let's just go through it again. Is there anybody in the room with questions or comments on this particular item? Seeing none, and I see nobody online, so let's go now to the board. Board? No questions? Nope. So hats off to everybody that made this happen. I think it was one of the smoothest years that I've ever witnessed, really. And also hats off to just, all the hard work that everybody brought to it. So this is an action discussion item, so we are looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Dr. Hayes and a second from trustee Otmar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No, and so it passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And now moving on to item B, which is our budget for fiscal year 2024-25. And Superintendent Adamson, I believe you're going to run point on this and maybe with some support from a couple other people.
Correct. Well, as you know, Superintendent Dawn is unable to be here this evening, and so it is my pleasure to have with us Cheryl Beller, who is serving as one of our interims in the interim supporting our business office. And Cheryl, I would love if you would be able to come to the front to just really talk a little about anything that comes to mind that you want to point the board's direction to before we approve the budget. I also know that online we have Veronica Flourroy, and she is available for any questions if they are needed. But Cheryl, if you wouldn't mind, thank you for being here this evening as well.
Don't really have much to add to, I think, what you've already gotten from Josh. I believe that he put out information to the trustees to express anything that you might have questions about in the budget as it was. And we put a lot of effort and time into putting it together, making sure that it aligns with all the state and federal requirements, and will go easily up to the state for approval. And other than that, that's really all I have to add.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. And just, you know, as a note as well, all of the adjusted salary schedules that you'll see that come later as action items have all been really sort of, melded into the budget and all been accounted for as well. If that was, a question that has been accounted for. So thank you.
Great. So let's go out to any public comment for anybody who's playing along at home. This starts on around page 430. And it looks like we have nobody online. Anybody in the room with any public comment on this particular item? Seeing no one, let's go to the board.
I will just say I did not have any questions because the presentations by Assistant Superintendent Jordan have been so clear and information packed. So I'm excited to see our reserve increasing a bit with everything we're doing, back to closer to a more comfortable level, even though not quite there yet. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Otmar.
I also don't have anything to add except to say thank you for the hard work. And Josh, if you watch this or you're listening, which I hope that you're not, thank you so much, because the time and the detail it takes to bring this all together and the presentations you've given in the past. I mean, I'm just grateful that you're here and this is fantastic. I have no issue. So thank you.
Trustee Carolyn.
No comment because like you all said, it was so thoroughly presented to us and we were given such opportunity. And so I appreciate it coming back. I know that it has to come back, but I like this process. And then I wanted to thank Cheryl Beller for coming here tonight on your own time. I hope we're paying you for that. It's nice to see you. I haven't seen you in many years. So it was really nice to see you and thank you for being here as support. So that's all.
Great, thank you. And yeah, and I'll just jump on that real quick. Amazingly dense and so much information and so well put together. So it makes it easier. And so knowing that and where we are, looking for a motion to approve. And I'm going to make that motion, looking for a second.
A second.
All right, so I made the motion and Trustee Otmar second. All in favor, say aye. Oh, what?
I got it.
Was
I got it.
Oh,
me.
I'm sorry. It's like, it's just,
I know your ears are blocked up. It's okay.
it's like I'm 100 feet underwater. It's really, really terrible. So,
Okay.
all right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to item C, adoption of the LCAP for 2024-25. And Buck Rogaman.
Good evening, trustees. Buck Rogaman, the Director of Curriculum and Special Projects, and we held our public hearing about the local control and accountability plan last meeting. And so this meeting, we're bringing it back forward as an action item, and it is always required to be accompanied by the local indicators that will go on the dashboard, which is coming as the next item. So this is the item that goes before that. If there were any questions upon further review of the LCAP, I am happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you very much. Let's first go out to the public, and I don't see that there's anybody online. Anyone in the room with public comment on this particular item? Seeing no one, let's now go to the board. And I'm going to jump in first. I watched the whole presentation on the flight back from Virginia last week and a half or whatever. And I thought it was very, very thorough. And it's also much easier to watch when it's at 1.5 times the normal speed. So
I hope that I wasn't responsible for the
wasn't
damage to
you.
your ears.
I'm just,
President
yeah,
Swanson.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and I had subtitles going,
perfect.
so, but really thorough and nice to just have that all together. I know it's a tremendous amount of work that you and your team put together, and I know it's a team
Absolutely.
too that gathers all that, but it was very digestible and thank you for the presentation. So moving on.
Same basic, you answered all the questions I had at the previous presentation and any concerns I had were allayed that we are working to address them. So again, thank you for the hard work.
All of that. And thank you. It's a big job. So thank you to you and your entire team. This is awesome.
Happy to do it. Thanks.
Yeah, Buck, thank you for this LCAP. I just wanted to say out loud, the fact that we have cultural proficiency as a goal on its own. It doesn't mean that we're there and racism is no longer in our schools or harm is no longer being done, but the fact that our district is willing to acknowledge that it exists. And for you and your team to put this together, I've been seeing that in many district documents, we're having that as its own goal and goals and in other ways. So thank you for that. I don't think it's not easy work. So I really appreciate that. I see you working hard on that.
Thanks.
And I think that's my only comment. Thank you.
Everybody, with that, looking for a motion to move forward with item C, adoption of our 2024-25 school year LCAP.
I will so move.
Happy to second.
All right, so if I heard correctly, a motion from Trustee Otmar and a second from Trustee Dr. Hayes, and all in favor, say aye.
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 And anyone opposed? No, passes unanimously. Great. Thank you again, Director Rogaman, for the presentation and all the hard work that your team put into this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. And now we've amazingly hit page 876 or thereabouts, adoption of our local performance indicators. And again, Director Rogaman, The stage is yours.
Thank you, President Swanson. This presentation comes with a slideshow, and every year we are required to put our local performance indicators on the California dashboard so that there are certain categories that people are going to be able to see how the district did with regard to the self-evaluation. One of the things that we did this year was that we used the template from document tracking to be able to put this information in the packet. And I think that the trustees are going to notice that there's an explanation for the rankings that go with the items this year, which is also something that was different than was done in the past. One of the things that we're trying to do is to take an honest and transparent approach to the local indicators. And so you will notice that our scores may have dropped a little bit from the previous year. And this is an attempt to be rigorous on ourselves and to also identify our areas of need very clearly for the public when they go to interact with the dashboard. Most of the areas of need that are identified in the local indicators have been addressed with items that we have in the LCAP. So that's how the two kind of work together with this part of our district evaluation. So the California State Board of Education approved standards for the local indicators that support our local education agency. When you hear people talking about an LEA, that's our district. And so we measure and report our progress within various priority areas. And so we're going to reflect on the emphasis of local control. It enables the LEAs to measure progress using our local data. And then it provides valuable information necessary for educational partners to engage in meaningful input. So this is going to be one resource that the community is going to be able to be able to engage with us and give us input when they see what our local indicators say. And then, of course, it also informs our LCAP planning process. So the first priority that we look at is the appropriately assigned teachers, access to curriculum aligned instructional materials, and also safe, clean and functional school facilities. So when we look at our number of appropriately assigned teachers, there were only 2 incidents where there were deficiencies in the district, and we had 2 teachers that were without the cross-cultural language and academic development certificate. It's one of the requirements that we have for our teachers, and those who don't have it have to enroll to get it within a year of being hired in our district. So those 2 teachers that don't currently have a CLAD will be in the process of attaining the CLAD for us. Then also we look at the number of percentage of students without access to their own copies of standard aligned instructional materials to use at school. And all of our students have those materials. So that's rated as 0%. And then also the number of identified incidents where facilities do not meet the good repair standard. And this is throughout the entire district. If you go through the facilities inspection tool that Director Anderson did for each of the SARC reports this year, you will notice that there are 19 different areas that are noted as being deficient in our schools. The vast majority of those have to do with roofing. And so that is kind of a summary of what those 19 areas of deficiency are, which is why there's extensive roofing work going on throughout the district this summer. I don't know that all 19 will be addressed by the end of the summer, but we're going to make a major impact on them. Next is a self-reflection tool for the implementation of the state academic standards. And so in the past, what the trustees and what the public have seen is just these tables that have the marks by them. If the public looks in the packet, they're also going to see these gray boxes that give a narrative of the reason why these ratings are as they are. So when you look at this slide, you'll notice that English language arts, math, and social studies history are all rated at that area of full implementation and sustainability. And the English language development and next generation science standards are rated as a 4 for full implementation. We are implementing the next generation science standards. The reason why it's at a 4 and not a 5 is because we had an adoption of a science curriculum back in 2019. And you might recall that was the year 1920 when COVID hit. And so we decided to focus on our transition to distance learning rather than have our teachers try to go through an adoption of science curriculum. When we came out of COVID, we noticed that that we had an emphasis on English language arts and math skills for our students. And so we still have not implemented the adoption that we had for science. So at the elementary levels, we're using a program called Mystery Science. It is still standards aligned, and teachers are funded to the tune of around $150 per class to buy the materials needed for the experiments that are done with Mystery Science. But that is an area that needs to be explained. When we look at our self-reflection tool number 2, this is where we're going to rate our progress in making instructional materials that are aligned to the recently adopted academic standards available for all of our students. And so once again, it's going to be a similar reflection with ELD and next generation being rated as a 4. ELD, all of the curriculum that we adopt has adaptations for our ELD students, and our ELD teachers use those in the instruction of their students, in addition to other materials that they curate for the ELD class. What we don't have is a specific English language development curriculum for them to use. Based on our English language learner progress rate that we have from the state, we're still making good progress with our English learners, and our early results from the LPAC indicate that that's the case once again this year, and that's all part of the narrative as well. When you look at let's see the progress in implementing policies and programs to support staff and identifying areas where they could use professional development in delivering the frameworks below. We rated everything as a 3. And that's largely because the focus of the professional development in our district over the past year or so has been in the area of cultural proficiency and not in subject-specific curriculum. So what we have done with the LCAP is we're trying to, or we've put in there as a goal to provide subject-specific professional development for our teachers. And so we're going to work with the site admin to see the best time, the best way to implement that subject-specific professional development that can go hand in hand with the district-wide initiatives, one of which you're going to hear about later in the presentation or in the board meeting, which is our partnership that we're going to have with the Restorative Justice Partners. Okay, and this is when we're looking at the state implementation of academic standards, we also have to rate our progress in implementing each of the standards. You're going to see that in the content areas, all of which are rated as a 5, with the exception of the health education content standards. I know the board has asked for a presentation on that. With regard to health education, the district doesn't have like a specific health class at the secondary level or the elementary levels. We fulfill the state standards and all of the requirements there using typically the physical education personnel as well as the district nurse. And so I know that at a future school board meeting, we're going to talk about that a little bit later so you can get a good picture K through 12 of how the health curriculum is implemented in the district. All right, we're also looking at rating the LEA's success in following activities with teachers and school administrators during the prior year, including some of the preceding year. And so when we're looking at identifying the professional learning needs of groups of teachers or the staff as a whole, we rated that as a 4 because we did ask the staff for input with regard to professional development activities that they would like to see. And we do have a process in place for providing professional development. We've got the 2 days that are built into the contract. And then when there's additional professional development that happens at the school level, there's additional time that's built into the contract once a month where we could do professional development for staff. When we look at identifying the professional learning needs of individual teachers, we're at the initial stages there because we don't have a systematic approach for sitting down with every single teacher, person by person, to identify their professional learning needs. Currently, it's part of the evaluation process and the goal setting that we do in evaluations, where the teachers will talk about the goals that they have, and they work with administration to put those goals together. And if there's professional development that has to go along with those goals, then the administrator works with the district office to help get the teachers the professional development that they need. And we look at providing for support for teachers on the standards they have not yet mastered. Again, the system that we have in place really is through the evaluation system. And I think that if we were looking at full implementation, there would be more work being done at the district than that. Okay, when we look at family engagement, we have a few different areas. We're looking at describing the current strengths and progress in this area and identify a focus for improvement. Okay. When we rate the progress in developing the capacity of staff, administrators, teachers, and classified staff to build trusting and respectful relationships with families, we rated that as a 5, and largely because of the feedback that we got in our surveys that identified staff and the adults on campus as strengths of our schools. That when our families and our students responded to the surveys, that was overwhelmingly identified as a strength for our school. So while it's certainly not going to be perfect, it was still identified as an area of strength. And also rate the progress in creating welcoming environments for all families in the community. That once again was rated as a strength in the surveys that we had in terms of people feeling welcome when they came to our campuses. As far as full implementation goes, we rated the progress in supporting staff to learn about each family's strengths, cultures, languages, and goals for their children. That is rated as a 4 because we have taken those steps with staff to begin that education with regard to the languages goals for their children. Also, our staff has a strong knowledge of our families when they're working with our children. And then rating the progress in developing multiple opportunities for the LEA and school sites to engage in two-way communication between families. That's also rated as a 4. There's full implementation there. It would be a 5 if we had even better services in terms of translation for our families that are multilingual. In terms of building partnerships for student outcomes, we rated a 3 as rating the progress in providing professional learning and support to teachers and principals to improve a school's capacity to partner with families. That is in its initial implementation stages because that kind of instruction has only been done as a part of other professional development that we've done. It hasn't necessarily been featured. Rate the progress in providing families with information and resources to support student learning and development in the home. We rated that as a 4. I'm going to be honest, it's hard for me to recall all these off the top of my head, but it's going to be captured there in the written comments and the narrative that we have. Rating the progress in implementing policies or programs for teachers to meet with families and students to discuss student progress. At the elementary level, we have the parent-teacher conferences that occur in the fall and the spring. And then we have the parent view for parents to be able to keep up with the progress of their students once the students reach the secondary level. Also on the report cards for the elementary, one of the comments that teachers make on the report card are suggestions for parents to help their students learn at home. That was developed in this fall's report card committee meeting at the beginning of the year. Also, we're rating the progress in supporting families to understand and exercise their legal rights and advocate for their own student rights. We have full implementation as far as that goes in terms of having a parent rights handbook that we distribute to our parents at the beginning of the year. And then also, if a parent comes to us with a complaint, then we assist the parent through the complaint process at the district level. In terms of building the capacity and supporting principals and staff to effectively engage families and advisory groups and with decision-making, we rated the district as a 4 based on the level of community input and conversations that we engaged in this year, not only in the development of the LCAP, but in the special committees that met throughout the year, and also with the standing groups that meet at our schools. When we're looking at supporting family members to effectively engage in advisory groups and decision-making, did I just, that one was copied twice, which is odd. So the slideshow might be an error, but it'll be correct in the template. Rating the progress in providing all families with opportunities to provide input on policies and programs, and implementing strategies to reach and seek input from any unrepresented groups in the school community. I think we're still at the initial implementation stage there. I think that we do provide those opportunities for family to give us input in terms of our policies and procedures. Where we have room to grow is in our outreach with our underrepresented groups in our school community, that we still need to explore effective ways in order to make that more of a reality for our families. And then working with administrators to work together to plan, design, and implement, evaluate family engagement activities at school and the district level. Once again, we rated that as a 3, that we're still kind of at the beginning stages of learning how to do that. Okay, for the school climate, that is a more extensive narrative that is going to be listed. And when you are looking at the packet, the first, looking at the description of the school climate, that is going to be located on page 890 of the packet. And that's where you're going to find a lot of survey data that's coming from the California Healthy Kids Survey. And so we put in data that had to do with school connectedness, school safety, and teachers and grown-ups caring about you. And we included that data at the elementary, middle, and high school level so that we could get an idea of where we stood in those areas. And then we wrote summaries of those findings under school connectedness, school safety, and caring adults. Once again, these are the focus of many of the local control and accountability plan actions in support of goals. And you can read about that on page 892 of the packet. And then the final area that we talk about is access to a broad course of study. And that begins on page 893 of the packet and concludes on 894. And we wrote to all of the prompts that are in the packet. I'm going to be honest with the board members. There are some typos that are in this information. And so we're going to go back and correct those typographical errors before we post this to the dashboard. And so at this point, that concludes my overview of our local indicators. And I'll be happy to respond to any questions or comments.
Great. Thank you for the presentation. Let's first go out to the public, and anyone in the room with public comment on this particular item. And nobody online. We have no one in the room. Okay. Let's then go to the board. Going to start to my right with Trustee Dr. Hazen. Any thoughts, questions, comments?
No, I'll say I thought in some areas you might have been a little hard on yourself. So I appreciate, again, that self-reflection. I think that's the right way to be here. And it's exciting to see how much is implemented and, to look for growth for next year. So nothing more other than another big thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Otmar.
Thank you for that. That also took a lot of time. I know. Reading over the Healthy Kids survey results and reading over kind of the synopsis of those things, I spent a lot of time. I reread it again last night because it's just so nice to have it right in front of us. condensed like that, I'm saving this part of the packet. So
Great.
this is gonna go in my drawer of things to reflect on. So, as far as the rest of this, I mean, we have so many things to be proud of. I agree with Dr. Hazen that, I think that perhaps a little tough on ourselves, but, we do have some space to grow, and it's great that we're being honest about that. And so I really appreciate the honesty that came forward in this. And I thought it was reflective and thoughtful, and, that's all I have. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Trustee Carolyn.
So just a process question, does this have to come back to us again, or is it okay that this is just here for the first time on this agenda? Because you know how the LCAP had to come twice, so is this okay to just be on here once and then we're done with it? Okay.
Yes. If I may, that the only requirement is that when we bring the LCAP forward to be adopted, that the local indicators have to be brought forward also.
Okay.
I think that that's a requirement because at times, I think that an LCAP got adopted and then the local indicator information just got entered. And so the state made it a requirement for them both to be brought forward for adoption at the same time.
Okay, and you mentioned that these items with areas of need, they were addressed in the LCAP.
Many of them were, yes.
So did you have the data when you were working on the LCAP?
Yes. Yes. So this, you're going to notice that especially in item 6, there is a lot of that school connectedness, the school safety, and I can't remember the third one. But all of that was present as we were putting together the LCAP. So as we were trying to address those, we also were addressing the local indicators at the same time.
From that survey?
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
So
and not only the survey, right, but the input meetings, the meetings with admin, the listen and learn tour, that all of that input inform the actions, and those actions, the input was very good at aligning with these local indicators and being able to identify our needs. And I think that we've done a pretty good self-examination of what our needs are in the district. And that was the goal of the LCAP, was to address them. And those needs that we identified in the LCAP process are also needs that we identified in the local indicator process.
okay. And then my last question, which I asked, I think about it last year, but just to be clear, so those 3s, 4s, and 5s, those are, that's a self-evaluation, right? So
Correct.
who's providing those numbers?
Honestly, I'm the one that's responsible for the
Okay.
document, and I'm the one that is responsible for taking in the data and coming up with rankings based on the template and the guidelines that I'm given to make those rankings.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
thank you.
And if I may add, I mean, the rankings you're providing are based on the data and the collection of data that we have, that's available to us, right?
I just, couple quick things. Obviously, this is the rankings, you're filling in a form that the state provides, right? It's like between 1 through 5 and
Correct. Like the rankings and what the rankings mean that are on the slides, that is provided by the state. So when doc tracking gives us a template, it is the template that the state has, and then they put it in a fillable format so that it's all in one place for us to be able to do this document.
And do you know offhand, is that ranking, that 1 through 5, been consistent over the last decade or whatever? Has it been 1 through 10 at one point? I asked just because sometimes I know they shift it, and it's just like,
I can look into that for
you
you.
don't have to. I'm just wondering if you know or not. So
Since the development of the LCAP process for the local control funding formulas, they have used the 1 through 5 scale for this portion of it.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. And then again, this is a little granular too, but since you're the one that, is really kind of making the determination, it's like I was looking at those scales, and one was full implementation and the other was full implementation and sustainability.
Correct.
Which seems like, how do you decide between one or the other?
I think that the sustainability means that it's at such a level of proficiency that, There's only, and I almost hate to say this, but it's minimal effort is required to maintain that full implementation status, whereas full implementation is, you know, we've built up to it. If we relax, it's coming, it's not going to sustain itself. So it's like that from a systematic approach, it's implemented and it's sustainable. Whereas I would say a full implementation hasn't reached a systematic level yet.
Right. Right. All right. Well, thank you. You answered my questions. Board, any other questions?
I have a kudos if you want it. Do you want it, Buck? Is that
Sure.
okay. Okay. Thank you for putting the presentation in the packet in advance. I think that's really great. And it's super helpful for me and I think helpful for the public. So anytime I see that, I'm going to call it out specifically. So thank you for that.
Happy to do it.
Awesome. Anybody else? So with that, it is an action discussion item. So I'm looking for a motion, which I'm going to make to approve, and now I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
All right, so we have me with the motion and a second from trustee Otmar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
And I'm hearing none opposed, so that passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Director Rogeman. Really appreciate that. Moving on now to item E, page 912. And Superintendent Adamson will be taking this for us, PGUSD Confidential Employees Agreement.
Correct, yes. So as you know, we recently approved our PGTA employment agreement, and as of just as recent as this evening, our CSEA employment agreement. And as is typical, we have 3 additional employee groups who meet and confer to really make similar decisions. And, you know, they always have that option to go ahead and follow suit in accordance with what was agreed by both our bargaining units. And so really the next 3 items, you know, really speak to what those 3 employee groups have determined. So the first one is our confidential employee agreement. And I'm pleased to bring forward to you that exactly what their agreement was. They, as a group, met and have agreed to a salary increase of 4.83%. So a little different to our 2 bargaining units, which was 3.25%, a little higher. And for that reason is that they agreed to a slightly lower increase for their benefits, which was $1,000 versus the $3,300 that was agreed upon by our 2 bargaining units. So really just bringing that forward for the board's approval.
So let's go out for public comment, and it looks like no one online at this moment. Anybody in the room with public comment on this particular item? Seeing no one, let's go to the board. Trustee Carolyn.
Yeah, I think it's just a great demonstration of how the groups themselves decide where the money kind of goes, if it's going to go to salary or if it's going to go to health insurance. And so this group did that, and I support it.
Trustee Otmar. Trustee Dr. Hazen.
Nothing else to add, yeah.
I've got nothing additional on this. So again, another action discussion item. Can we see a motion to move forward with this item E?
I will so move.
I'll second.
All right, we have a move from trustee Otmar, a second from trustee Dr. Hazen. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing no one, passes unanimously. Moving on to item F, similar to item E, approval of PGUSD classified and certificated management agreement. For those again playing along at home, it is page 914.
All right, well, this one is exactly as you said, President Swanson, the same. This is for our classified and certificated management group. They agreed to do very much similar in line with our 2 bargaining units with a 3.25% salary increase and $3,300 for their health and welfare contributions. Bringing it forward for approval.
And going up for public comment, let's see, we have no one online and anyone in the room wishing to step up. All right, so now moving to the board, I've got nothing. Moving to my right, Dr. Hazen.
Nothing for me.
No. Okay, so can I get a motion for approval?
I will so move again.
I'm happy to second again.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Otmar and a second from trustee Dr. Hazen. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing no one, passes unanimously. Great, thank you. And now moving on to item G, PGUSD Adult Education Group Agreement.
All right, and once again, yeah, this is our adult education instructor group, and they too went along with that very similarly to our other groups, 3.25% increase in salary and 3,300 in health and welfare contributions. Once again, bringing it forward.
Looking out into the room, any public comment on this particular item? Seeing no one. Anyone online? No one. Board? I'm seeing heads shaking no. Can I get a motion?
Third time's a charm. I will so move.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Otmar and a second from trustee Dr. Hazen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No, passes unanimously. And here we go on to item H for historical expenditure plan for resource 6770 Prop 28 Arts and Music Program.
All right, well, this is very exciting to be able to bring forward. We've heard a lot about Prop 28 over the past few years, and finally we have the funding. And part of that requirement is once we receive the funding is to put a plan together on how we intend to spend it. And so this is incredibly exciting for our elementary schools because as a result of this, you may recall in part of our general fund, we have 0.4 full-time employee set aside that we have been able to utilize for the past year. We are going to be contributing, taking that 0.4 and using these funds to add a 0.6 to really the 0.4 and 0.6 come together to make a full-time employee. And that will be our certificated music employee that we will use for our elementary schools. And so that teacher will go ahead and be shared between the two sites. And it will be specifically an instrumental music teacher. So we're excited to be able to offer that to our elementary students. And in addition to that, you'll see we've set aside funds for a full-time instructional aide as well. And so those are really the two pieces. As you read the requirements of Prop 28, it is required that 80% of the funding goes towards staffing. So we are in compliance with meeting those requirements. And as you'll see, the remaining amount that is left will be spent on supplies and materials. But the predominance of that is going towards additional staff to provide that for our students. So very exciting. Yeah.
All right, going out for public comment, and we have someone online.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hmm?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone but Brian can hear you.
Oh, okay. This is
And
Beth.
maybe turn up the volume a little bit. So
Okay, can you hear me now?
yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to remind the board that music has always been one of the cornerstones of our district. And maybe lately it hasn't risen to the top like it used to, but it is there, and it's kind of for me, it's a proud thing that we have in our district that we emphasize it. So I really like to see this going down to the elementary level, and that kind of what do you call it, like the support that's going to be coming up. So you start with your elementary, and you're really going to, by the time they do get to the middle school, there's going to be even a stronger group of people. So I really am happy about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Anybody else online? No one else online. Anybody in the room? Otherwise, I'm going to bring it to the board for any additional comments.
I'll say, Beth said it just right. I mean, that's exactly it. I think focusing on music is so important. I'm so excited that this is happening. I think elementary school is the place to make it happen because that's where the spark happens. And I'm just happy it's here. And thanks for your comment, Beth. That was perfect.
Anybody else?
I have a quick couple comments. So when I first saw it was going to increase music, I was kind of 50-50 about that because I feel like the spirit of this money is to increase arts and music. And I understand we're increasing music, but it's also music that's kind of been existing. So I appreciate the explanation. And I was wondering, how did we engage and get input from community or teachers or students on this to just make sure that we are filling where we should be filling on this money?
That's a great question, Trustee Swanson. And I think that very much rose to the top as we, we gathered a lot of our feedback from, our surveys, but also our input sessions. The arts, comes up repeatedly. I think given the fact that we were able to offer just, a portion of that instrumental piece this year at the elementary level, we heard so much from our students and from, our staff at the elementary levels of how, valuable that was, even though it was for such a short amount of time. And, there was just a strong interest for that to be able to continue. And I think, part of as well making that decision this year was based on a lot of that feedback that we heard from the students and the families themselves directly. As you know, we were offering it and we had to stop because that teacher, wasn't able to continue in that position. And we really were able to see our secondary music teachers come, band together to be able to see that continue. And, we've been able to see just for that short amount of time, the value of that. And so you're right, even though we've had music, it's been more of the choral music, for them to be able to do the singing component of it. But I think our secondary, teachers are so excited to be able to see, a little bit of what they were able to, be a part of this year. The fact that that's going to continue in future years, to see that continuation, right, from elementary all the way on up. And, we'll monitor it as we, go forward in the coming years. But definitely for now, it was as a result of a lot of feedback and a request for that to continue.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm just thrilled that there's money, that there's more money coming in, especially at that elementary level. It is, the foundational. I'm just a huge music fan, of course, and it changed. You can see it in our district too, just the difference that it makes. Music in all the different ways, whether you're singing or whether you're playing an instrument or whether you're just enjoying it, and that we have it, and we have had it. I mean, I think we're known in the district better than some other districts for having a really solid music foundation, but to have a little bit more, to goose it up a little bit more is fantastic too. And I know from direct experience watching my kids how monumental it was in their young adult life and how it contributed to their education. And again, so many other students in our district. So it's great. So all that said, I think board members have all commented. It's awesome. We do need to approve. So can we see a motion to move forward?
I'll make a motion to move forward with item H.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from trustee Dr. Hazen and a second from trustee Carolyn Swanson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. And it passes unanimously. So now moving on to item I, RHG contract for services with HGHB Architects.
Hi.
Dr. Anderson.
So with Measure D, one of the things that's covered is fire alarm upgrades. And so I'm putting forward a contract to get the drawings made up so we could take basically the modernization of the fire alarm system at Robert Down out to bid. So this will be a set of plans that we'll be able to use in the future for other things, but for the most part, it's going to allow us to have plans that we could submit to DSA for approval. And of course, take those through the bidding process and get the fire alarm upgraded.
All right, let's go out to any public comment or questions on that. Nobody online, anybody in the room? Let's bring it to the board.
Yeah, just for like the full story's sake, will you just tell us how the fire alarm status is at the other sites and why Robert Down is getting theirs replaced?
Robert Down is probably the one that's in the worst condition. So that was my first choice. Plus it's our older building. We do have another fire alarm system at CHS that has recently developed problems with the fire alarm control panel.
Okay.
And so I've already am seeking That one's not as complex because it's small. So I've already got one quote and I'll be getting another quote for that one. So it's in the works.
Okay, and the middle school is fine.
Middle school had an upgraded fire alarm panel installed last year and it's operating pretty well. It occasionally has a misfire.
Okay,
That's
Yeah.
and lots of them.
okay, middle school is good, high school is good.
High school's pretty good right now. Yes.
Okay, Forest Grove's good.
Forest Grove's good in the moment. Yeah.
Okay,
They're all in the works though. I'm just picking the
not
worst.
perfect.
Nothing's perfect.
Got
I'm
it.
working on the first one first and it's the big one.
Okay, and middle or the adult school, how's the adult school?
Adult school developed some problems today. We're having it looked out next week.
Today?
Today. Actually, yesterday.
Oh, boy. Okay, so thank you for that overview. That's all I have. I support this.
Trustee Otmar, anything? Dr. Hazen?
Yep, just to say I was happy or excited to hear that the plans will be usable in other forms as well. It's always, I know you do a great job bundling things to save our district money, so
Do the best I
appreciate
can.
it.
Great, thank you. I have no questions, so I'm going to make a motion to approve item I, RHD contract for services with HGHB Architects. Can we see a second?
I'll second.
Second from Trustee Otmar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No. Passes unanimously. Thanks, everyone. And now moving on to item J, page 929, PGMS contract for services with Primal Painting Incorporated. Director Anderson.
Okay, so now we're going to paint 3 buildings at the middle school. It's building A and B, and it's going to be the exterior painting only up to the what we would call the fascia and overhang. We're not going to paint that portion of the building this year because next year we plan on doing the roofing, which is going to include some dry rot work there. But the paint is in such bad condition on the actual stucco of the building. I just really don't want to look at it for another year. I want to start painting. And we're also going to do some dry rot repair on building E, which is where the beautiful new flex lab is, and do the painting of that structure. The roof, we could go ahead with the dry rot repair there because the roof was replaced last year. So 3 buildings on the campus, so about half the campus getting painted this summer. And a very good price, I might add.
All right, going out to the public. Anybody online? No one online. Anyone in the room? I'm seeing no one. So to the board, I've got no questions. Dr. Hazen.
Nope, no questions.
Trustee Otmar is good. Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
I have a question. So I am kicking myself for not speaking up more before the high school got painted. So here I am, maybe too late for the middle school, but board policy says that we can ask about color. Some people might think it's micromanaging, but it's in board policy. So here I am. So what are we doing with the color?
Hot pink.
Okay, good.
I'm just kidding.
Sit down. It's on record.
No. We're actually going with the same exact color that was selected about, I think the last time it was painted was about 14 years ago.
Okay,
And we're using the exact same spec.
same color.
Yeah, and the reason we're doing that is just going to refresh it. It's going to look the same,
Mhm.
but without coloring, without changing the color that
Mhm.
much, it's easier to paint over the existing color
Yeah.
because it's the same. And I figured that community is used to seeing it that way. It's probably the best way to go.
Mhm. It's not an egregious color in my opinion.
No.
Um,
And I did discuss it with the guy that runs the place. And
okay,
so,
that was my next question. Hot pink was number 2 for the record, because you're not on a mic. Okay, so the other thing is, next time we go to paint another school that maybe hasn't been painted yet, I just want to float out the idea that this is in my opinion, a fantastic opportunity to bring the community in on Measure D funding. We could maybe narrow it down to 3 choices that everyone's comfortable with and wouldn't require, because I understand the efficiency of painting the same color, because then a lot of maybe the trim or the inside work of the door frame, or there's so many things then that you can kind of leave if they don't need to be painted, because it's not going to be such so noticeable. But I do think in the future, if we're going to paint a school, we can bring the community in, narrow it down to a couple of choices, and have the community choose, have them vote, have the parents vote, have the taxpayers vote on it. It's going to be something that all 3 of them are agreeable. But it's just a really good way, and painting is so visible for our Measure D funds. So that's what I would like to see next time we paint a school.
To give you a little background to the thought that goes into painting, like the
Yeah.
high school, for example.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do going forward is painting with what we call standard fan deck colors. So different painting companies have a fan deck, and those are the standard colors they use over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so by using a fan deck color, we're able to, at any time, go get an exact match for that paint to the best of our ability. Also, factors that came into like painting at the high school,
Yeah.
like the color Tahoe blue that we used. That's the standard color that comes on the rain gutters. So we tried to paint the doors to match. So there's, there's some thought process to
Yeah.
it. So that's why there's a slight change in the colors at Forest Grove and a slight change in the colors at the high school, because we picked a fan deck color that was as close as possible to the existing color.
Yeah.
And like there's some real history where it's my understanding the public was involved with the original painting of the high school, and they went with these ocean colored themes that's supposed to represent sand and water. So been there, done that with the high school. And as far as I understand, the public did weigh in at that time,
Ages ago.
ages ago.
They may not still be voters. Okay, so that's my idea to float out there. That's what I would love to see, is some excitement around the color picking. It's like something that I think is doable. John may disagree, but that's my 2 cents on that.
I think we got everybody. Did I actually hear
have
somebody
a
say hot
comment.
pink?
I've got a comment. My comment would be this. I see here that we're not painting every building. Is that correct?
Correct.
So therein lies another problem, that you wouldn't want half of the school, unless there's going to be an entire school painted, which I would imagine would be pretty expensive. It would make more sense to me, and probably be more cost effective, to continue with the same color.
Agreed. And we also paint in phases, because of the short time span with the summer. If we would try to paint an entire campus over one summer, it would just not work. So
I'm a fan of what you're doing,
Okay.
and I say keep it up.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, I think we've gone through board discussion on this. I'm going to make a motion to approve item J, our contract with Primal Painting Incorporated. Can I get a second?
I second.
All right, so a second from trustee Brian Swanson or a first, and a second from trustee Carolyn Swanson, no relation. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing no one, passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Moving on now to item K, Restorative Justice Program Proposal. Director Rogeman.
Good evening, members of the board. This is a proposal for the district to partner with the Restorative Justice Partnership. This training is going to be absolutely pivotal to the work that we're trying to do in terms of cultural proficiency, as well as social emotional learning, with regard to our local control and accountability plan. This group is well renowned for the level of training that they're able to provide. This is the partnership that was formed with Denver Public Schools that has become kind of a standard bearer for restorative justice practices in schools. The main purpose of this is to support the district's work in bias incident response, that we want to make sure that we can establish, first of all, a culture where we're looking to restore the relationships at our schools when they've been broken. And we want this training for all of our staff, not just some of our staff. So no matter what our staff's role is at the school, that they've got a certain level of skill in order to be able to interact with people in a healthy way and a healing way when the time calls for it. The contract is for $60,000, and I know that seems like a pretty exorbitant amount of money to pay for a professional development plan. However, restorative justice is such an important element in our local control and accountability plan that we don't want to short arm the effort, that we want to make sure that this element is going to be a foundation upon which our adults learn to interact appropriately with our children. And maybe learn to interact appropriately isn't really the word, but it's to improve, enhance, and to really form those transformative kind of relationships that we're hoping to see when we do the California Healthy Kids Survey. Our goal would be for every single student that comes to our school to have that kind of a positive relationship with staff, and the Restorative Justice Partnership is going to help our staff identify specific actions to take to establish those kinds of relationships with our children. I think if you go through and read the description of the services, which is on page 945 of the packet, it really gives a great idea of what the training is going to do. So when we do our staff-wide staff development on August 2nd, 4 hours of that are going to be devoted to the restorative justice overview. It's going to happen at each one of our sites, and then that immediately is going to be followed up with the bias incident response framework training in the afternoon. So those two are going to partner with each other very, very well. The restorative justice is going to set the foundation for the bias incident response training that's going to happen in the afternoon. And it's going to kind of set that mindset of how we're going to approach these situations as we move forward. The whole idea is that we want to heal the relationship and not just think about punishing people for what they do, right? That ultimately we want to build a community of empathy, caring, and compassion so we can improve the relationships, student to student, students to staff, and staff to staff. If there are any questions about the proposal, I'm happy to answer them at this time. The training is going to come basically in 5 different actions, and those are all outlined for you pretty well in the packet.
Great, thank you for that. Let's first go out to public. It sounds like we have one person online with a question.
Hi, it's me again. I totally support this restorative justice. I have experience with it. And it's so worthy that $60,000 really doesn't sound like much at all. That's how worthy this project is. My only question is I mean, I assume that you will involve families in some way. And I'm just wondering if how that will happen, like, because I think this is not something you want to just keep indoors, like meaning within staff and students, but you want the community, as much as the community can be involved, but definitely the families knowing what this is and how it works. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else online with the, okay, and anybody in the room? There you go.
I'm never going to get it right. I told you. It's still not going.
No, you're good.
No, it's not the clock, it's the green light. So
For
you got
God's
green, you're good
sakes.
to go.
You're good.
It's not going now. My
No,
timer.
there's-
There you go.
There you go.
I really think that this is a beautiful way to rebuild the connections in the community. I didn't know that it included all those aspects, but I don't think that the district can afford not to do something like this. We're really just at a critical point socially with the kids, with the teachers, after everything everyone's experienced with COVID, socially, mentally. I totally 100% support this. I think it's beautiful. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else online or in the room, public comment? Let's move it to the board. And if I could jump in quick, because I know it's not really a Q&A unless the board might have a question. And Ms. Shamas had a question about just incorporating families in. If you could maybe briefly address that, I'd appreciate that a little bit more.
Sure. I think one of the efforts that we're trying to do is inform our community about all of the professional development that staff is going to have. In the conversations that Superintendent Adamson has had with the Restorative Justice Partnership, it sounds very much like they're going to craft this professional development to our needs. And we're going to be working with our community partners to help plan, customized training for our district, so that they'll be aware of the journey that we've been on, so that the training can address that. So, Dr. Adamson, I know that you've had some pretty good contact with the group, and so maybe you can talk about your impression of.
Yeah, no, you answered that well, Director Rogerman. I think there will definitely be a component with it that they're incredibly motivated for that. And again, they worked with, Denver City Schools, and that was a heavy component in the work they did there. In addition to that, just recent conversations we've had with Principal Martinez is even incorporating it as, a class, through our adult school could be another option as well, for those, interested in wanting to take that on. But definitely that piece of involving our families can be a component of it. So there's an interest.
Great, thank you. And as I understand it too, it's $60,000, but about half of it is funded through a grant that we have too, right? So.
Right, and then the other half is funded through Goal 5.
So, yeah, nothing not to love, in my opinion, fellow trustees.
2 questions, just one I think has been asked before on similar items, but is there an opportunity for the board to get involved? And I don't know if it's direct training or maybe for some of the staff trainings. I would love to learn more for my own edification.
Trustee Hazen, I think that you might have noticed that part of it is a book read, and I think that absolutely would be one avenue that the board could get involved in. I think that if you're available on our day-long training on August 2nd, that the board would be welcome to come and visit the training that's going on at the sites, so you could be involved there. And then Dr. Adamson, we could see if the trainers might be available when they come to do a special session with the board, just to give you kind of the flavor of what our staff is going to be receiving.
Yeah, I mean, we do have to fill that role sometimes as adjudicators. I don't think we've had to all have been on the board, but I think it would be a good thing for us to learn as well. And then the other question was just about, I do this sometimes too, but opportunity for curriculum enrichment for the kids. So is this the kind of thing you thought about for like the leadership classes at the middle school and high school to take on a topic, maybe a debate, maybe a, engagement in?
Well, and as you read the description of the implementation and of the training, the very last part talks about the whole school implementation. And I think at that point is where there's really going to be some rich opportunities. Also, it talks about the circle process, and that is really a community building approach that we're hoping is going to be solidly established in our schools, and students will be heavily involved in that as well.
Awesome, because thank you. I think that just hits back at one of those, as tying it back to the LCAP, which again, is what we are trying to do. That was one of the things that came out, was that not, all kids felt like the results of their actions, or the punishments for actions, were equally applied. And so I think this sort of a thing, if we could use it as a teaching tool to help kids understand why restorative justice is more important than detention or skipping recess, would be helpful.
Trustee Otmar, anything?
I agree that I think we can't afford to not do this. Your comments were totally on point, and thank you for coming up and speaking. I have a question, and it might be in here and maybe I just missed it, but this is going to be for every school in the district.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Right. Yes, that every school, and our hope is to have every employee that is, be involved in some aspect of this training as well.
So this truly will be rolled out district-wide
Yes.
to every employee and every student. Excellent. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Trustee Carolyn.
Yeah, so we've had some policy come through that actually mentions restorative justice. And so I was wondering if you would be willing to type restorative justice into the search engine and pull up any of the policies that mention it and review those, and just make sure that we can maximize those policies while we're, when you're guiding the team on what to do. That would be incredible. And then I think this is so valuable. So thank you for doing it. And even if the funding changes or somehow I think we already got that one grant, but if that multiplier money gets a little sideways, because I'm a little worried that that's going to get sideways, please just, in my opinion, just pay for this however you need to. And then slightly adjacent, so I heard you mention reporting, which is a big part of the initial stages of being able to apply restorative justice is we have to know if something took place. So I was remembering the Sandy Hook promise that we were going to implement, and I know Josh isn't here, but how far have we gotten on getting that rolling for the district? Does anybody know who's in the room?
We actually did roll it out in spring of this school year, and for sure April, May of the last 2 months of the year, and it was in use, and our staff were trained, and we actually had started receiving, some reports. Myself, was even the recipient of a couple of them, but it is in full
So we
swing
have
and
that
has been
going.
utilized, and it'll definitely be something we'll want to, review and revisit again at the beginning of next year to be sure,
Yeah.
students know, and families, but
Have
yes,
all
it has
students been
implemented.
notified about that?
Yes, they
and
have.
families?
Yes, yeah.
I
Over
haven't.
to our administrators and just be sure about that.
Not all of them. Okay. Okay, well, so we will look into that and make sure that everyone's aware of it for the
Sure,
starting.
it'll be a good refresher again at the beginning of the
Okay,
year.
and I'll search my emails. Maybe it came in and I missed it. So thank you so much.
That covers the board unless any board members have other questions or comments. So looking for a motion to approve item K, our restorative justice program proposal as presented by Director Rogaman.
I will so move.
I'll second.
All right, motion from trustee Hazen and second from trustee Otmar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on now to item L, page 947 in your playbook, agreement for services with the City of Pacific Grove for a school resources officer.
All right, well, thank you, President Swanson. I'm very happy to be bringing this back again for the board's review and approval. You'll recall that we had this at a recent meeting, I believe in April, or beginning of May possibly, and really had brought forward a contract that there was a lot of discussion on. And as a result of the feedback from the board, we were able to go back and we have taken part in multiple discussions and meetings with PGPD. And I do want to, just really commend them and thank them for their collaboration through this. They were very open to a lot of the feedback that we brought back and a lot of the requests that we made. That you see in the revised contract. We also had the opportunity to work with some of our community partners who we've been working with for our cultural proficiency plan and implementation. And so, along, with that feedback and input, along with those additional conversations with PGPD, in addition to legal input from our end and, their legal counsel, we really were able to settle on the agreement that you have before you in the packet this evening. I think that, it really definitely signifies, our commitment to really wanting to talk about a lot more about what the SRO role is and a little bit of what it isn't as well. I think that was, definitely something that I heard from the board when we had those discussions. You'll see there's definitely a strong commitment and focus on wanting to include our SRO in some of the training that we're doing, and the restorative justice program training specifically comes into mind too. And so there's definitely a shared interest for our SRO to, be a part of that. And, I just think in general, more language in there as far as, best practices, but also, ways that we're going to be going about, sort of monitoring the program and our adherence to the contract itself as well. So again, I think we're very proud of, the work we've done, but most importantly, I'm just grateful to PGPD and the input from our community partners in the work that we've done so far.
Okay. Let's go out to public for anyone online. No one online, anyone in the room with comment on this, please step on up.
Nice. Not on. Well, it's going. Officer Hill's nice. Everyone likes her. I like her. There's no denying it. But what happens when she has to stop being nice and do her job? At the end of the day, she has to answer to the higher ups at PGPD. Policing and its connections to the school to prison pipeline is worrisome to me. Officer Hill may eventually have to be called to make decisions that may become detrimental, particularly to Black students. We've seen in the most recent LCAP, this is a demographic of students needing more protection and support. The pipeline is neither protective nor supportive. As far as providing safety, around November, our district experienced 2 on-campus intruder incidents. Having an SRO did not prevent these incidents or make the students safer. As far as being a liaison between PGPD and PGUSD, Officer Hill does a great job. But this is a service the police department is supposed to be providing to build positive community relationships. PGUSD should not be paying for this service or paying the salary of a police officer. The kids like Officer Hill. Again, I like Officer Hill. But the kids have greater needs at this point. The general funding would be better use for more academic interventions, mental health support, rehabilitative services, or to fund at least 1 full-time security guard to remain at one site all day. If the school has an emergency, an officer can arrive in the same amount of time as if we had an SRO. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else in the room with a comment? Seeing nobody online, let's move it to the board. Anybody jump in with anything? I'm not gonna call names.
I'll jump in. I agree with the speaker tonight. I also feel it's important for me to say that my comment is two-pronged and that this is in no way related to Officer Hill because they do happen to be the person who is fulfilling this program right now. I think Officer Hill is exceptional. On the other side of things, so the contract in many ways has evolved. And I really thank Linda for that. And I thank Chief Kathy and any city folks involved with that and any district folks involved in that. And I think that it was just such a move forward from what we have had in the past. I remember several years ago before I was on the board as a member of the public, I had to ask for the MOU itself. It wasn't even in the packet. So we've really come such a long way. And I appreciate that. But the thing that has made me just nervous all day about this item is how do we prevent harm from coming about because we have this program in place? And I know that may sound strange, but I looked in the contract. I don't see where it specifies in the contract that the SRO is not going to be a part of disciplining our students. And I think we all need to talk about that because what is the expectation? You know, some people in the community, so I'll also say, I don't think our community is ready to not have an SRO on campus. I don't think most of the staff members are ready to not have an SRO on campus. So this is one of those decisions that's so difficult as a board member because I can see it from so many angles. But, you know, in the contract, it says that the SRO, that we will provide the SRO with an office to a private office to conduct confidential business. And I feel that that should be specified that we are not saying that the officer is can sit in that room privately with a student. You know, that's not, in my opinion, the role of the SRO, but when you read the contract, it's not clear. So I just don't know how we can continue with this program and also just be very certain that we're not creating harm. Another example is sometimes having an SRO on campus when there is an emergency makes staff think, oh my gosh, where's SRO Hill? Instead of calling 911, which is actually, from my understanding, when we had our emergencies this year, that's protocol. So there are certain things where I just think we need to be really clear with staff what the expectations are in having this this visitor on campus. They're a contractor on our campus. I think there's confusion in the community that Having an SRO means the schools are more safe, but we have multiple campuses and one SRO. So again, that's why I'm really in favor of having campus monitors, having a campus monitor program, like we talked about when the safety review came out. And so I'm excited and looking forward to that. I know you guys are kind of you're working that through because that requires a shift in funding and also in job description or job fulfillment. So I understand that, but so long story short, or long story long, sorry. How do we prevent harm with this program? How do we make it so kids who maybe haven't had a positive experience with police officers going to school every day and seeing a police officer aren't harmed by that? How do we make sure that staff don't, in a moment of frustration or exhaustion, say something like, careful, or call the cops? Just even those things, I worry about this. I worry about this.
I think to answer the question, how do we, prevent harm with it? It comes back to the building of relationships. And I think that's, I've seen that myself, throughout the year with Officer Hill. And I hear the comment, Officer Hill's amazing. And, what happens when Officer Hill's not here anymore? And would that be the same with someone else? But that's who we have now. I think there's language, in the contract that gives those protections. But in my opinion, the big part of what the SRO is doing is building relationships to bring about a more positive opinion of police officers, amongst all students. And I think, that's the beauty and I think the benefit and the value of the program for that reason, because it is, I think, for some students who may be, coming onto campus and have not had that positive relation, this is an opportunity for them to build that. And I think we see that with Officer Hill. I mean, that's, the thing, even I think back to the graduations last week, there she was with them and you see the students interacting with her, all students. And that's as a result of just the effort and commitment and time she's put into that. And so that would be my answer, to that question. Yeah.
Is there anything that we can do data wise? I know that we did put out some questions to students this year, which was kind of the first time that I had seen that. It may have happened in the past, but that was the first time I had seen it. And I really appreciated that. But is there a way to have that data be kind of a baseline and then a gauge for whether or not we want to move? I know no one's going to like this idea, but I have to say it. If we know that a certain group of students feels less safe because there's a police officer on campus, what's our point where we say, okay, we need to relook at this program? So maybe we need to continue to ask that question every year and have a line that it crosses, okay, now we're seeing more of this. I mean, it's not just our kids of color, it's our kids with disabilities, many different groups can be harmed if we don't have the right person. And I know that right now, I feel in my heart, we do have the right person, but the program itself still makes me nervous.
Understood. And I think to answer the question about your question about the question in the LCAP survey, I mean, for sure that, we do use the correct word. It's baseline. We have that information now, and we absolutely intend to maintain that question in future surveys. And I think as a result of, some of the data we were able to collect this year, I think we can use, some of the responses we got to even refine some of those questions or add one or two more that we think are going to help serve our purposes, to give us the data we need to just measure success and monitor success of the program in moving forward.
Okay. I made a note of that we can maintain or evolve those questions. And then my last question, just to circle back, can you clarify the point about the private office being provided for confidential business? What is the spirit of that? What are we actually saying should be happening in that room?
Right. And that was a conversation we had, with PGPD, and we changed some of the language in there to really, I think, reflect a little bit more clearly, what it is intended for. And, it does state that it's for confidential business. So, there may be times if our SRO has to, make some phone calls that are confidential, or, they're looking and gathering paperwork, or, any kind of business that they have to do in terms of, logging and reporting on their own behalf, right, to PGPD, or even, to us as a district. So it is intended for office type work business only. It is absolutely not intended for them, to be meeting with students alone at any time. And that was very clear, through our conversations.
Thank you.
If I could jump in, I just want to say when I first was elected to the board and still on the board, I agree with some of the comments made. I'm not a huge fan of the SRO, the program, because that should, in my mind, be paid for by the city, as was mentioned. This is what law enforcement should be. But, and it's a huge but, it comes again back to the kids. And do I think that Officer Hill makes our kids safer? I think there've been plenty of evidence in this past year where she has. And so I think to me, it's a no-brainer to approve this, but I think it is something we will have to and should be considering each year and revisiting and deciding, is this still working the way we want it to with the data as mentioned? I will point to a few things. The item R, I think it was, the SRO will work collaboratively with the district to build a culture of we, in which all students feel a strong sense of belonging, safety, and prosperity. It's hard for me to see how that points towards making some kids feel unsafe. I think that is something that Officer Hill is taking on by signing this contract, or the district, is with the police department. The other one is P, which is the one that says become knowledgeable about restorative justice techniques, special accommodations for students with disabilities, practices proven to improve school climate, and on and on. So again, there's no language in here that says that she will be interrogating students or arresting students. And I think, again, that's not the point of the SRO. The net positive that she brings to our district is, it's hard for me, again, recognizing that she's the right person on that job. It's just hard for me to imagine our district without her in it. So yeah, I'm in support of this year and look forward to reviewing it and reconsidering if anything should change next year.
Trustee Otmar.
I'll be concise because it's going on for quite a while. I was also going to bring up the parts of the contract that discussed restorative justice. And I think this is an opportunity to have a great relationship between kids and police officers. Not everybody that wears a police uniform, is a bad person that's trying to sit in a room alone with kids and interrogate them. This is an opportunity to show kids that there are public servants that are here to protect us and that will throw a football with us in the park at a end of the year celebration. This is a very unique opportunity to show kids what an SRO can be and what a police officer can be. And I'm in full support of this. I love this contract. I really like that we worked in restorative justice. And I would like to move forward and approve this so we can all get back to our families.
Thank you. I'm in full support. I think about over, again, now 8.5 years of all the different SROs that we've had who've been all really exceptional. They've been chosen carefully, and the one we have right now too is like really remarkable. We've been careful about it, and I think that Officer Hill is building community. And do we bring it back again? Of course we do. We bring it back every year, and the contract has gotten better every year. We're paying attention. That's what we're supposed to be doing here, and that's what we're doing right now. So I don't want to take any more time on it because it's already been said by everybody else too. I'm in favor of moving forward, and then when it comes back next year, y'all can take a deep dive on it and see if there are any words that need to be changed and change them at that point in time. So all that said, any other board comments or?
The only other addition I wanted to add, and I had shared this, with all of you when the question arose, but I have discussed with PGPD, they would be happy to add that sentence that really says, the function of discipline. I think I'll just read the exact one. Sorry, the font is tiny. Student discipline is the function of the school administration and not the SRO. They were absolutely fine with adding that, as one of the line items. So
If we add that, I'll vote in favor of this tonight. Yeah.
Okay.
no,
You have the wording?
Yes.
So Trustee Carolyn, you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make a
I
motion.
have a question, actually, before we move. My question is, if there is something happening on campus that requires a police officer's action, that would qualify as discipline. So I want to make sure that there's a clear line there that if somebody brings a weapon on campus, something is happening, I don't want there to be something that they're bound to contract to say, well, I don't want to discipline for fear of blowing the whole SRO program or getting in trouble or violating contract. So I would like to be really careful about adding that sentence. That's important, that instead of just dropping a line in it, I want to make, I don't think I want that sentence. I'd like to approve it tonight, but without that.
And yeah, I mean, the sentence would be with, the approval of the board with it, but there, there is language in there that very clearly states, in the event of safety, that it would also be at the calling of the SRO if they needed to step in as a result of safety, but also, and I'll need a moment to find it, but where, administration could call on the support as needed of the SRO as well. So it gives a little bit of that flexibility on both ends, if there's a situation that warrants it and we've got to make some decisions and act, in the moment. I think the discipline piece of it is more along the lines of if we're establishing, the SRO is not going to come in and say we're going to suspend a student, right? That's always the duty and the role of site administration, district administration. They're not going to say, they're going to expel, I mean, that would always be, those are decisions that we as a district make. They, could maybe weigh in and give advice, but we end up ultimately, making those decisions.
I would just like to have it specific then, so that they are not responsible for suspensions or expulsions, something that's specific like that. I want to make sure that her hands aren't completely tied on campus as far as not being able to be effective if an issue comes up. If a kid's walking off campus and is truant, I would expect her to say, hey, you belong on campus. Do you know what I'm saying? That could be seen as discipline. So I just think that's a little bit gray. If it's specifically talking about suspension or expulsion, I'm fine with that. As far as saying that she cannot discipline on campus, I mean, I think everything's spelled out pretty well in here. I'm comfortable with the contract as it is, unless we're going to add something about suspension or expulsion. I'll leave it to, we've heard from Carolyn about when she would, it would take that to have her vote yes, but how you feel about it as well.
Well, I mean, I'm okay with it is at this point, and like I'd suggested too, as things move forward in future years, if you want to do a little tweak here or there to make to find that language, have at it. I'm not going to be sitting here anyway, so I'm good with it how it is right now, and it can always be made better. It can always be made better.
I'll be honest, I'm 50-50. I like the idea of adding that because to me, discipline has a very explicit meaning. Like safety becomes before discipline in my mind. So if safety is the role that the officer needs to play, that's what they should play. But discipline from the, administration. So I can see that, but at the same time, I'm happy with the contract as written as well. So that's what I'm saying. I'm really 50-50 on it. I realize I'm not taking a position, but I'm at least stating my opinion.
All right, so
I'd like to make a motion to accept the contract as is.
I'll second that. And let's go to, so we have a motion from trustee Otmar to accept as proposed and a second from me. And let's all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, passes 3-1. Thanks, everybody. And we are now going to move on to item M, approval of resolution. Ugh, now I can't hear. I could barely see earlier, and now I can't talk. Resolution 1134, recognizing June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth, even though the agenda says Juneteenth.
Yes, it does.
So I can read though, at least. So for that particular item, Dr. Adamson,
Yes,
please.
indeed. Well, thank you for this. I mean, who doesn't love another holiday, right? So this is our resolution we're bringing forward to really establish Juneteenth as a holiday. And as we typically do with all resolutions, is there a trustee who would like to read it out for us this evening?
I'll read. Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education, Resolution Number 1134, recognizing June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth in the Pacific Grove Unified School District. Whereas June 19th is a time that many in our nation recognize Juneteenth as the holiday that celebrates Emancipation Day, the day in history when the last state ratified the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas this date marks the time period where African Americans of Texas received notice from President Lincoln that slavery had been abolished, and a declaration that was codified in the 13th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. And whereas June 19th also marks the day that African Americans in the southern states exercised independence from those who benefited from their labors in the founding of this nation. And whereas the journey of African Americans represents both great achievements and great hardship. And whereas our nation is currently witnessing the injustice of the African American journey that have existed for far too long, this June 19 celebration weighs heavily on our hearts and our minds, as many African Americans continually are not treated equally under the law. And whereas the pain and anguish displayed on our national stage developed from generations of systemic racism that impacts our students, families, staff, and communities. And whereas the educational institutions of this nation, including Pacific Grove Unified School District, has a particular responsibility to recognize the painful realities of our history and to make sure that our curriculum reflects these realities. And whereas working with the community, the Board of Education of the Pacific Grove Unified School District is committed to identifying actionable items to improve policies and procedure, to improve access to opportunities to ensure that students, families, and staff do not experience inequities in the schools of the Pacific Grove Unified School District. And whereas we value diversity and are united in our opposition to racism and hate, we stand in solidarity with our African American students, educators, staff, and their families. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Pacific Grove Unified School District hereby officially commemorates Juneteenth as a day to celebrate and emphasize a collective call to action against injustice of any kind.
Terrific. Thank you so much for reading that. Let's go out for any public comment on this particular item. Anybody online? No? Okay. And anybody in the room? So let's go then to the board members. Any comments?
I appreciate this holiday being recognized. Even during summer school, it is a day for the schools that they are closed. And so I appreciate that. And I'll be voting in favor of this.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
No, I'm just glad this is here.
Okay.
So-
Can we see a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion from trustee Dr. Hayes and a second from trustee Otmar. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Moving on now to item N, 2024-25 classified and certificated management salary schedule revision, page 962 in your hymnal.
All right, I do want to point attention to the board that we did catch an error on the schedule. And so there was a revised one that was printed in your binders and will be posted to the site. But really the purpose of our, bringing this forward this evening is we are in need of adding an additional line item. It's specifically the principal on special assignment. And as the cover page indicates, this is to be able to address the addition of the need for us to have additional leadership in our CTE, Career Technical Education Program for next year. And so this line item will allow us to, officially be able to add that position for next year. Any questions or comments that you have?
Let's open it up to public comment. Do we have anybody online? Seeing no one online. Let's tear this up. And anyone in the room? Not seeing anyone. Board. I've got nothing to add. Seems pretty clear. Seeing that from everybody else as well. So action discussion. I'm going to make a motion to approve. Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Right. Motion from trustee Brian Swanson, a second from trustee Otmar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No, passes unanimously. And so thank you for that. Moving on now to item O, proposed board calendar. Dr. Adamson.
All right, well, thank you. And here too, we have a revised schedule that is in your binders as well, but we are proposing that the meeting in June, which is scheduled for June 18th, that we move that from a special to a regular meeting. And the purpose for that, we have a need for several items that will be on that meeting. And one in particular is a contract that you're needing to approve, hopefully, at that meeting for my employment. That has to be done at a regularly scheduled meeting. So we will be bringing that forward for that date at the board's approval. And then June 9th is the other date we are wanting to propose for the month of July, again, for a regular board meeting, with the hope that that would be for us to be able to bring forward and have that discussion about a possible bond that we are considering adding on the November ballot. Any comments or questions on the dates as proposed?
All right, let's go to anybody online. Anybody in the room with thoughts on this particular item? No, let's bring it to the board. I'd already checked these before with my calendar and they work. The only thing I want to mention is that we need to make sure that we take whatever steps to for any remote meetings, because I will be zooming in from Toronto.
Yes, we will make sure that we, add that address on the agenda for sure. Thank you for the
Trustee
reminder.
Dr. Hazen.
Yeah, no questions from me on this. I think those dates work and glad to see, apologies that we have to turn into a regular, but I'm glad to see we can turn the June 18th into a regular
Right.
board meeting.
With the goal being that it will still be a short agenda for June in particular,
The
right?
goal of every meeting, right?
Essential only.
Trustee Otmar.
I'm good.
Trustee Carolyn.
No comment.
Can we see a motion or hear a motion? I won't hear the motion, but I'll try to see someone's lips move.
Also make a motion to approve the calendar.
All right, I will. Were you first? Because I didn't hear anything else. So we're looking for a second.
Wait, did you change, are you wanting to change the calendar in your motion or leave it at, because if it's as is, you don't have to do a motion, but if you want
Oh,
to
that's
change
true.
something, then you should
No.
say it.
Well, no, but we are
Changing
right?
that
'Cause
special
we're
to the
changing.
regular.
Will you say it in the motion?
Sure, yes,
Okay.
making a motion as per Dr. Adamson's recommendation to change June 18th from a special to a regular meeting.
Okay, so as stated, with that change from trustee Dr. Hazen, seconded by trustee Otmar, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, passes unanimously. Moving on now to information discussion. Item A, review of legal fees.
All right,
Dr.
yes.
Adamson.
Thank you. I am bringing forward just a summary of our legal fees to date. We have shared with you at the board's request also a copy of, just the fees for the last, 2 years. And there's, a comparison column that has been presented. But essentially, the request from the board was to just get an idea of what our fees were this time last year in comparison. And yes, there's been quite a significant increase. Significant in the sense of a little over 200,000. So we are looking at some increased expenses. So, I know the question that's going to come up is, why and, where are those additional fees going? So just to give, a summary of, for sure, we're looking at, the category of general student fees. We've had a few, incidents where we've had to, it has involved sort of investigations that we've needed to look into. So quite a significant increase there of, roughly 63,000. Let's see, special education, there've been significant fees there and a little over 80,000 there. So that contributes for a big part. And then we have had an increase in, just our UCP, complaint requests, public records request. And so, we have had to really lean on our legal counsel a little more for assistance there. In addition to just some, public records and then, I mentioned special education as well. So again, I think that sums up the majority of the increases and there's just been more activity that we've needed legal counsel on.
Thank you for the extra detail on that. Let's go to the public. Anybody online with a comment? No one. All right. And any members of the public in the room that wish to chime in on this? Seeing no one, so let's go to the board.
I have a quick comment just to make, and apologies for being didactic, even though I'm not supposed to apologize. But, you know, the PRA one, the Public Records Act, it's a very important component of California law that there is the ability to get that. But I do think it's important to remind the public that it costs money, and it costs significant legal money that takes away, I would argue, from at times from what we're doing. So just one of those things, it needs to be used at times, but just a reminder, please don't use it frivolously because it is taking away from our other funds. So
Great. Thank you. Trustee Otmar. Okay. Trustee Carolyn Swanson.
Elliot, that's a really good point, actually. And so an alternative to a Public Records Act request is to just ask the staff member for information related to an item, because almost everything we do is discoverable instead of like a wide ranging PRA that takes a lot of staff time. So I don't know if anyone's listening who would want to go a little easy on our legal fees, but if so, I mean, that is one way to do it, is just to email a staff member and ask them for information. I don't have anything further. I mean, we've already spent the money, so it just is what it is. I think it's a cost of doing business. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it was, I mean, the number that I had written down here was 230 grand more than we were last year. A lot. It's like, that's a couple of people. I don't want to go too far. I don't want to even go down that rabbit hole really, but and so I won't, because I think most people who know me know where I would go with it anyway. So I'll leave it at that.
You gave me an idea.
What?
You gave, I'm so sorry. You gave me an idea. Do we want to look at hiring our own attorney? Like in-house? It might be cheaper. It's just an idea for later. Oh, you know what? I'll bring it up on future.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think,
It's
I
just
mean,
something.
yeah.
I know that
Just
our
a
firms
lot of
have
this stuff,
expertise.
you know, where we spent it too is just, all right, has been just diving so deeply into, again, the public record stuff. And
Yeah.
I've even seen that, all right, so I will go down a little bit, that rabbit hole. I've seen that even weaponized now, where it's just like, you know what, we're going to do a FOIA request on this and that. And it's like, if somebody really wanted to cause harm to a district, they could do that. I know, I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but you could, you know, so it's like, I think if you know, for some of the things that have come to us or that have come to the district, it's like, you know what, think about that. It's like, do you really care about the district and the kids and where our money is being spent? Because that's something you need to consider. And there, I'm coming out of that rabbit hole or off that soapbox or whatever. And any other board member comment?
just a quick one. I like the idea, but I worry about the expertise.
I
Like,
know.
the benefit we have of an
I know.
entire, we interact with a number of lawyers from Lozano Smith in a
I
given
know.
year. And so it'd be hard to get that from a single, but I get your point.
We'll see, right? I mean, if it continues at this level, I think our hope and our instinct is that that this was a big year
I agree.
and it'll go back down as it has in the past. This is kind of an upswing. So that's all I have on that.
Okay, so that's information discussion. There is no vote that needs to take place on that particular item. Moving on to future agenda items. We are almost there, folks.
Well, I will turn to the board. Any items you would like to propose for future agendas?
I'll do one very quick one, not to ask for any response here, but is the one I brought up before is the kindergarten through third grade Espanol. Is that something we can look into, whether it's through ASC, the after school enrichment program? We talked about how important.
Will you say that again, Ellie? I didn't hear the first part.
Oh, sorry,
it for?
kindergarten through third grade Espanol, Spanish.
Yes, I agree with you. Go ahead.
Just trying to figure out ways to get that, you know, in the music grant is a great example of how important it is. Learning music is like learning language. It connects wires. But again, I would love to see us teaching the kids at the earliest, even maybe TK to 3, you know, access to a language that's spoken, you know, predominantly throughout California.
Job skill for sure.
Trustee
And
Carolyn?
are you requesting that for a future agenda item? Yes,
Got
if
it.
the board would like.
That's
Okay,
it.
yeah, sure. Yeah, no, that's good.
So so we would bring that back and then we would talk about funding and then we would talk about putting that into the budget for the following year. Is that your expectation?
And potentially report from Director Rogaman on just what
What it would entail?
what it would take, what are the different options we'd have and how best we could use our money to do that with the limits on instructional time.
A future agenda item to
Future agenda
discuss.
item. Yeah, okay.
Any others?
I only had one and it was just that the board have professional development on cultural proficiency, just so that we're at the same or try to keep up with the staff's level of proficiency, because that's my fear, is that our staff are becoming culturally proficient. It's a journey, it's ongoing. And we could be very well-meaning, but up here saying things that are not culturally proficient. And so like, that's what I mean when I say, can the board continue their cultural proficiency? I want it to be at the top, even though I don't really see myself at the top, but org chart wise, we're at the top. We should be keeping up with what our expectations for staff. So can we do that? Or do you feel like the restorative justice part, kind of us reading, I don't know. I feel like us reading a book is okay. And us being able to attend on August 2nd is okay, but it's kind of it's a privileged mindset that someone would have the time to attend on August 2nd all day. Or no offense to you, Buck, I don't mean that you made a bad recommendation, but or like have the time to read, I mean, like, yes, we have the time to read, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not doing it as a whole. We're not discussing it. We're not hashing it out. And that's what we need. We need to all talk about it in a room. So that was my
I
request.
think the idea, and that when Director Rogaman talked about the book study, that I went straight to was, we have our governance sessions. And so I see that maybe being a component of it, and we could embed into, our contract that the trainer comes and joins us for some of those. And so has some of those
Like a
same
book club
discussions.
moment. We read the book before and we come and talk about it.
Exactly, right? That we could embed.
That was
Something,
my suggestion as
It's
well.
something,
I
yeah.
love putting it into board. That should be board governance, board training to me.
Yeah. We need to talk about it in a room together.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just wait for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that
Okay,
for sure.
thanks.
That is that last item. So I'm going to adjourn. One thing, just one notice again, that the next board meeting is not a special board meeting. It is now a regular board meeting on June 18. Everybody have a great weekend and thanks for sticking it out. We are adjourned.